Here we are again after our slight pause with Callette, and I believe you're going to explain to us your childhood experiences.
Yes. So I didn't mention this earlier, but my brother, I have an older brother who's 2 years older. Him and I were both adopted. And from a from the moment my brother and I could understand, my parents told us we were adopted. And that was another struggle for me, not knowing who I truly was, knowing that I had these other parents. I struggled with, why did they give me up? Did they not want me? As a little kid, you don't get it. So when I was from a very young age, I asked my mom a lot of questions and asked her, can I know about them? And so she gave me this little card, and it said mother and father on it, their ages, their height, um, the color of their eyes, the color of their hair, their ethnicity. And come to find out, my birth father was Native American Indian. And I knew from, I can't even tell you, I've just always been so drawn to the Native American heritage. And when I found out that I was actually Indian, it kind of gave me a little more sense of who I was, and I was excited. Um, but my mom always told me I was not allowed to find out anything until I was at least 18, and I never understood why. And she said, because you're Indian and they'll come and take you away from me. So I grew up my whole childhood and, up until I was 8 until now, thinking that if I had pursued any further without my mom knowing, I was going to be taken away from my mom and dad.
Hmm.
And that was not, in my looking at it now, I understand why my mom did it, because she didn't want to lose me, but it also was very unfair to me, I felt like, because I wanted to know who I was. So after I had my second son, um, I actually came into some money by winning the Ohio lottery. I was on the lottery show, and I used some of that money to pay Catholic Charities, where my brother and I were adopted through, to do a search because it was expensive.
Hmm.
And I finally had some money and I was able to do it. And then I didn't find out much about my birth father, but I had to go through an interviewing process. I had to write a letter to them, and whether they found him or not, that was just part of the process. I had to actually drive an hour to the Catholic charities, to interview with them to see whether I could mentally handle knowing her or not, which, whatever, that's a whole nother story. But they did find her, and she was living in Toronto at the time. And she ended up contacting me, and we started talking on the phone. And one of the first things she said to me was, what religion do you follow? And I said, I'm Catholic. And she said, that's what I grew up as, and my parents to this day are still Catholic. And I said, oh, that's cool, because at that time I was able to relate, and knowing that they were Catholic, so I assumed she was too. But she said, do you know anything about Scientology? And I
Oh,
said,
wow.
no, I honestly did not know. Well, she was in Scientology. She was a Scientologist, and she used to live in LA. After she had me and graduated from high school, because she was 17 when she had me, she moved to LA and got recruited into that system and got married. And but then I guess things didn't go well with her and her husband, and she had another son. So she was transferred to Toronto. But she was high up, as far as Tom Cruise. Like, that's how high level clearance she had.
Wow.
But she never, her entire life, had a driver's license. She never did get a driver's license. She didn't know who the current president was at that time, and this was back in 2009 when this
Hmm.
happened. Um, she didn't know current events, because that's how far into the control system she was with that religion. And I found it very sad. Um, it was very, very sad. So, but going back to my childhood, my mom's oldest sister, my mom comes from a family of 11. She's a twin and she has triplet brothers. The oldest of the 11 was a nun, my aunt, Sister Jane. And she, being a nun, she lived out on the Indian reservations in Arizona for like 15, 20 years. So when she would come home, she would always bring me back these beautiful jewelry and blankets and things that the Navajos had made to give to me because she knew I was Indian. She was the only one who actually really supported me, I feel like, with wanting to know who I was, but that's as far as that went. I mean, I didn't ask her any further about spirituality, but she was very spiritual, even though she was a nun. She was just different. And to this day, I have so much love and respect and gratitude for our beautiful connection that we have together. But yeah, so it was kind of strange growing up because all that time I was not allowed to know who my real family or my real parents were. They weren't my family, but my biological parents, because I had a lot of medical issues, a lot of serious, rare things. And I wanted to know. And I just didn't have the money. My mom would have paid for it if I had asked her. But by that point, I was like, you know what? You held this, you told me I was going to be taken away from you. I'm not pushing the issue anymore. I felt like it would hurt her feelings if I pursued it. It ended up turning out, once I told them that I was doing the search, um, they, my birth mother came here to the States to visit, and we had kind of, I had a luncheon at my house, and my parents actually met her, and it was awkward, and it actually bothered my dad. So I was shunned again at that time by some of my family because they didn't support it and say, how dare I do that? This is your mom and dad. Why would you have her in your life? But they didn't understand. When you're adopted, you don't understand unless you've actually been adopted, that what it feels like to not know who you are and try to figure out who you are, and know that you have multiple people in your life. My mom had always been supportive, but I think they were just insecure and worried that I would feel more love for her than I would them, which was totally not the case because things ended up bad. Um, Things didn't end up on good terms with her because she tried to recruit me into the Scientology, and
Really?
I was having it.
Ugh.
Absolutely would not have anything to do with it. And some certain circumstances happened, and I cut ties with her and all communication. And then I found out from one of her nieces that she was dying. So in 2010, I got to speak to her a few days before she passed of pancreatic cancer. And I was very glad that I was at least able to tell her I'm sorry for the way things turned out. Um, but that was it.
Well,
So
at least you got that, right?
didn't know, she couldn't remember anything about my birth father except for his first name.
Huh.
And that was it. I'm like, and she had only had sex the one time and got pregnant with me. So, that religion had her so um, messed up in the head and so consumed that she was not allowed to the outside reality. And I guess that was another reason why I pushed so hard to figure out, I can be this spiritual person, and people can be Catholic and they can be whatever, but they don't need that label. They just need to know who they truly are and just figure out, from go within instead of looking outwards, um, for a God that's not out, it's in you, you know?
Right.
And that's kind of how I figured things out on my own.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, me too. But that was a hard thing to deal with, knowing that I was illegal and that my great uncle, who was on the board of Catholic Charities, covered it up so my parents didn't have to worry about it. But that was the influential um, resources that my family had, and they used them. So
I never even knew that was a real thing. I
yeah.
mean, I thought that if you, are of sound mind and body, and you're interested in finding out who your birth parents are, it was just your right as a person. I had no idea it was illegal and that you could get taken
There,
away and
yeah, a
all of
lot of
that.
laws and stipulations that and loopholes to go through. And by that time, if I had really wanted to, after I had moved out and was married, I could have asked my great uncle, and he probably could have made things happen for me. But I wasn't in communication with him, so I did it the way it was meant to be.
Right.
It happened in divine time.
Yes, it does. So I'm just curious, was your birth mother Navajo?
No, she had no Indian in her at all. It was just my birth father, and I believe he was Cherokee.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but my mom's oldest sister lived out on a Navajo reservation, and um, I'm not honestly, I don't know what she did out there.
Okay.
She's very, very spiritual, though. I don't think she really taught them the Catholic religion at all. She, was she followed what they did, their belief
Mhm.
system, because she was really into earth medicine and
Mhm.
natural, doing things holistically. So,
I have been drawn to that naturally as possible as long as I know.
yeah,
The more I learn, it just intrigues me to know that there's so many different things in nature that can heal you without a prescription. If only we had known that sooner,
yeah,
and I've been working on how do you change something as huge as what we're up against, which is common knowledge. To some people, we know it naturally, spiritually, or we remember. Pretty sure I don't want that particular pill, but I can't remember why. It's the side effects.
absolutely.
So I've been talking to quite a lot of people about what can we do to help people learn. Go back to the natural medicine first, and then if that doesn't work, of course seek medical attention. Don't think that
Right.
doctors are here for no reason because everybody has a purpose. But if we could find a common ground somehow between the current medical doctors, natural doctors, and energy healers all in the same facility, that is my current goal.
Yes. I know there's books out there that are hidden from all of us that show us the true natural medicine to be using. It came from somewhere, and then when those that are in charge decided to put a stop to it, they created their own medical knowledge for everyone else, and that's what everyone's been learning ever since. I have family who are doctors, and heaven forbid you don't follow what's in that book, you're going to die. And I totally disagree with it. We need to go back to natural. We need to have those true books brought to the surface for everyone to see so we can learn. And those who are in the medical field that are wanting to do things more holistically, that aren't getting, killed at the moment because they're trying to do things holistically, we need to all step up together and start teaching that. I'm all for it.
I fully agree. Anything you suggest, we can put it out there and see where it leads
Right.
because the sooner we get our team together to bring all of this into fruition, I mean, it's happening. They say everything is happening now, but it'll actually be happening now if we're focused on the goal of
Yeah.
bringing it all together to heal the things that created the disease in the beginning
Yes.
before it became hereditary. And in order to do that, people have to understand how to clear their spirit, their conscience, their first of all, it helps if you have a conscience. Because some of these people I do my best and I say I don't judge, but it blows my mind. I'll be like, how do you even do that without feeling that that's wrong? Like, how do
Yeah.
you intentionally harm another without just knowing that you ought not do that? It's
Right.
wrong on every level. it's one thing if you're defending yourself physically, spiritually, or in whatever way you have to against, something that's trying to harm you. But it's another when you are up against people who do it intentionally to maintain control over the masses and then use, um, how do we say this kindly? They use what they use, as
Yeah.
the brand in the front. You would never know what they were doing in the back. It looks like a perfect establishment that's safe, and then you realize later, what? They did what? Oh, like just that information alone when you first find out what happens on the backside of people not upholding their word. I
Yeah.
guess to say it politely. Um, and it seems like every side of it since birth, and it's just waiting to burst out of you to share it all with everybody. So pretend I'm a clean slate and I just woke up, right? Only thing I can remember is good stuff, and I'm born into this world where duality has to be in place for us to exist. Yet we've broken through the veil, and the only thing I can remember in that zone is the pure love and light and peace that we were originally created from, yet we're here.
Yeah.
And we're here to assist others through whatever we can, because we're just people too. We're not like gurus or anything here. We're just moms on a mission so that our kids can have a brighter future than what we went through growing up in the years that we did. Because
Yeah.
before we were born, women weren't allowed to speak, they weren't allowed to vote, they weren't allowed to write checks, we were property. And, sometimes we still are, according to where you're at in the world. Um, but I always felt like my soul is more larger than a dollar sign or
Yeah.
a political agenda, and I always felt people ought to be free to be able to become whatever they want to be.
Absolutely.
Because if they follow their hearts and their dreams, they're not going to harm anybody, spiritually
Just
speaking,
for the good of all.
for the
No
good
matter
of all.
it's for the good of all.
And we have so many children right now with these really great invention ideas, like how we could actually have purified water and how we could have sustainable communities. You know what I'm talking about? I'll just let you say it because I can hear you thinking. Go ahead.
Um, that's something that's really dear to me because my boys, I'm always out. I'm an earth sign. I'm a Taurus, so I'm always out. I have to connect with mother as much as I possibly can. And my boys are actually they love being outside. So I have a book on natural ailments, natural plants and flowers that are edible and medicine. And we would go out before we moved. We had this beautiful property and a lot of woods. We would go out into the forest and start looking for these things in the book and teach them. And then I'm like, you guys need to teach your friends this too. So to this day, we live kind of in a rural country area now where they go to school, and all their friends are in farming and, you know, just outside all the time instead of being inside doing gaming and stuff. And they get together with them like, hey, do you know that dandelion right there is medicine? And so it's just beautiful to see that our kids, I'm trying to teach them. I don't know everything. I'm still learning myself, but I just think it's so beautiful that we can be way showers for our kids. And honestly, I think they know way more than we do. You
I
know,
know, right?
do. I think they know a lot more than we do, and they're teaching us a whole lot as well. It's just such an exciting time because I do see these kids saying, I don't need that medicine. I don't want that. And then it's up to us to help them say, well, you might need something for this, but let's do it in a holistic way.
Hmm.
Oh,
I
but
think that's
they're getting it. They're
they
starting
are
to get it.
getting it. My God,
They
kids
got to
are
make them self-sufficient too. It's very important that these kids learn self-sufficiency. We've taught our boys from a very young age, since they were like 6 years old, they've known how to do their own laundry. They know how to cook. They know how to sweep. They know how to do everything. And survival skills. We go out and teach them survival skills, how to start a fire, different ways. These kids need to know this kind of stuff, because if we do go into these communal type living, which I think would be a major beautiful thing, they're ahead of the game and are going to be very successful in these communities.
I love it.
Yeah, me
So we
too.
wanted to make a school for that. I checked on some prices and I pretty much got the 20 grand price. We could create an online private public, like with private classes, but on a public level. So you could just log in kind of like K-12 and get your basics, but the majority of your learning experiences would be in nature or whatever you're driven to know. Like if they like robotics, let's teach them how to make robots. Why not?
Yeah,
Because that's what keeps them intrigued. They already know how to communicate telepathically, but they're trying to learn how to speak with others in the now, in between letting their little ideas flow. So I have this vision of if we can get the online school up and then use the vested interest we had spoken about to let that seed the funds for the teachers to get paid, because they all have to have means in order
right,
to provide lessons. But as we're building cities of light, each city of light would have its own educational center with a spiritual center, so that when people are sick to the point of possibly not making it, they could come there and be greeted with peace, love, and light, and natural medicine, a medical doctor, people standing by to pray you through the energy release of the illness and all of that type stuff, so that we could have like miraculous healings. If it's something just spiritually stuck in a cellular memory due to a pain or an illness in youth, which is usually where it begins, or a prior life that continues because you didn't get to deal with it back then, they
hmm
would already be 100 times ahead of the game, if they were able to learn according to their intuitive natures rather than being forced to do things that they're just not interested in. I mean, math is great, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
unless you want to be a mathematician, why are our sixth graders and seventh graders doing things practically like calculus all of a sudden?
yeah,
And we know that they look to see who does what and who has the highest scores, and that's all great at the end of the day. But if they don't want to be a mathematician, why are they wasting their childhood studying for 12 hours for something they're not even interested in, because it makes them
yeah,
sad? And then they regret that they have to go to school, and school should be like an intriguing experience where you actually enjoy what you're learning. It doesn't mean you like everything. Not everybody likes English as much as they do science, but I believe that if we put our minds together, we could create an environment that would be more educational slash spiritually connected, and then they would grow and prosper naturally instead of being forced to learn things that they'll never be interested in. You know what I mean?
right.
Some
I
kids,
do.
yeah, they know when they're a kid they want to be a warrior and protect their tribe, and they end up being in law enforcement or some type of security job, which is fine because without our protectors, what will we do? You have to have somebody to keep an eye out for things
Right.
coming through that aren't quite right in your neighborhood, and that's fine. But don't abuse the power,
You're right.
because somewhere in between there, they learn kind of like what you went through, because you're looking at both sides of a spectrum at the same time. You're a religious family in a very well rooted, founded, and grounded organization that runs the rest of the world power, which is huge. And then you're also half Native American spiritual Cherokee warrior of peace at the same time, going at each other, trying to figure out why they're not matching up. But if somebody had just said, hey, it's okay, to be in touch with your spirit. It's a gift.
Yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
curse. It's just a gift. And as long as you see it as a gift and not the opposite, it can become that. But when you're experiencing it and everyone around you is like, oh, that's bad, don't da 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 da. It reminds me of one time I said, a friend of mine told me, actually, I just repeated it. She said, here's what I don't understand. People call upon these names all day, but if they show up in person to talk to you through someone, you want to run and freak out. Why? You called upon them all day, all night, and then now they're speaking to you in person so that you can get your direct answer, to remove all the confusion. And then all of a sudden, you're not. What? Is that not what we do all day? Is try to connect to our spirit from God so that we can be guided each day of our life as to not fall on our journey and be the best version of ourselves that we can. And yeah, we fall, but we got to get back up and dust ourselves off and okay,
Yeah,
don't do that again. That was Everybody makes mistakes. But just because one person thinks they're better than you doesn't mean you're making a mistake by following your heart.
that's right.
And I don't know how you feel about sharing that with others, but that's where I was before I called you. Like I said, I had the most amazing day spiritually speaking because you just never know how your day is going to go. And I saw high levels of energy coming in that were beaming positive light, and had a blessed moment where I put my hand on a child and would put my other hand up to the sun, and I could feel the love and the light and the peace flowing through me to him, back through me and into the light in a way that I can't put words to. Because if you weren't there as the vessel holding that space energetically, words cannot describe that level of unconditional love. And everybody knows everything flows on energy.
Yeah,
So if we've tapped into this energy that can assist people in easing their souls in any way we can, I'm all in for that. And that's when I became a minister, a voluntary minister of peace, that is, for the benefit of all humanity. So I'm not claiming I am a guru or I am this. I am but a vessel. I pray like everybody else does that the light flow through me to whatever they need. Because I don't know, but they know, where we originate from. And I feel like if we can get our team in order here, I'd be so honored. You're already a member of the Rainbow Bridge Tribal Council of Light, but now that we've actually had a face to face, we've been sharing messages for what, 2 or 3 years now before we ever met in person. I can't
yeah.
even remember.
It hasn't been that at least a year, I think.
Was it a year? Okay.
I'm not sure.
You're probably right. It probably was last year because the other stuff started 3 years ahead. I told you I get confused on time when
Okay.
I'm trying to put lines together in my head to make sense of things. But it's so beautiful the way we connected because I'll get messages from you and I'm like, oh, hey, Callette, hey, sister. And you send me back the same, but we had never met in person. But we kept each other going somehow for the past, you say, a year. Seems like I've known you longer than that in my soul, though, with just messages of encouragement. It's
Yeah.
really not that hard to forward a positive message
It
because you
makes my heart
never know.
do it. I know. When I can bring any type of happiness to anyone else, that makes my heart so happy. And it when you give, it's all about giving that love to someone else, no matter, just letting them know they're important. The person down the street that's homeless right now, letting them know how important they are, because no matter what, maybe you just going and acknowledging them and letting them know that they are appreciated, that's going to give them the strength to get out of that situation if they choose to. But
Exactly.
most importantly, just knowing that they are cared and loved about. I just did that with my boys on Christmas. We were driving and we saw these two homeless men by this abandoned building, and we didn't even say anything. We were acknowledged to them, and I turned and I looked at both my boys, and they said, we need to go get them some food. So we went to the gas station, we bought them some food and some hot coffee, and we took it to them. And most people were like, why did you, that's unsafe. Why would you let your boys be around them? I intuitively know what is good and what isn't. I'm not going to put my kids in a dangerous situation. I did
Right.
make them stand behind me, but we went and gave that to them. And the one man said, God bless you. I was just telling him that some coffee sure sounds good right now. And I said, well, you must have spoke to me, because here you go. And we told them how much we appreciated them and to let them know that they were important, because they are. I don't
They are.
care who the hell you are. If you can't acknowledge another human life without any happiness and love in your heart, then you're not of the light, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, but I'm just very blessed because my boys get it, and for us to do that together, the three of us, um, something majorly powerful and energetic happened that day, not only for those men, but for my boys and myself. It really raised the vibration, and that's what this is all about. Us continuing to be of love and light, and raise the vibrations, because even though you're going to have that darkness right along there with you, it's going to be tamed by the light.
Amen, sister. You just spoke it all, fluently as can be. And I thank you for sharing, because sharing is caring. And for you to go in to your deepest moments in your life that you've struggled through, just to share with anyone in hopes of boosting their day, I'm honored just to be in your presence, because it's rare to meet so many beautiful people back to back to back to back to back as I have been blessed with lately. It didn't matter if I was in the hospital, on a gurney, going through whatever, someone showed up in one way or another that let me know that that light within was worth keeping and burning. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
and I would think of my kids and how much I love them and how worried they were that I was sick, and oh, if I could just stop being sick. Oh, like stop being sick, because it's making them upset and I know it. But we made it through. And now that we made it through, we can bring all of our dreams into fruition together as sisters on a real tribe. You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
that is so cool to know that we both came from similar aspects in our lives. We haven't talked about all mine yet, which we can do that. We have plenty of time. Just to come together this one day on New Year's Eve, knowing that we're praying in New Earth into existence. And there are literally millions and millions of women all over the world who are waiting on us to just say, hey, come on, let's do this. Let's make our educational system the way it was meant to be and make sure our children are okay. And we pray that their fathers understand, but we're their mothers. And some
Yeah.
fathers feel that way, like, I want my child to be free. I want my child to be in touch with their spirit. I want love. But not all children get to experience that love of a mother or a father, so they get lost in between. And then
Yeah.
they end up on roads that we wouldn't want to travel because they can't get back to that
That's
love if they've never experienced it to begin with.
right.
So if you're thrown in the, I hate to say canister, but there are people that I've met and I have been thrown out and know what it feels like, because you feel like you're trash when you're thrown out from the only people that you know as your family that you think loves you and supports you so much, and you can't find any one of them anywhere near you on a street somewhere to grow from that homeless child that I was to who I am today, I blessed and prayed for every single one of their souls to not suffer and feel any pain from anything that happened in my life. So it didn't matter to me whether I was living with them or not, whether they were there for me or not, whether I had to raise myself or not. None of that mattered. You know why? Because when I was walking in the shoes of the Christed light within, I had no judgment on anyone until the lives in between started popping up. Now, when those lives in between started popping up, I was getting a bit, okay, it's about to be boxing time here. Because
Yeah.
if you came from a Native American spiritual background and you know that this earth is sacred, and when people tell you not to say thank you to the sun for providing the light to grow the trees and keep us warm in the daytime, while the moon at night keeps us lit up, you know, to cool the earth so that it won't self implode from all that heat, right? You have to have equal moon, sun, stars in between, you know. And if you happen to remember being from the stars or anything like that, then oh my gosh, how do you explain that to someone, right?
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful to know that you can go back that far in your own soul history as best as you can, that is. Because if you can't meet someone your age or older, nobody can take you to where you began. You
Right.
can go to a healer and they can say, okay, well, I can only tell you this much. And then you got to go figure it out on your own because we're always seeking outside assistance because how else can we get there without each other? But first of all, for you to even ask for assistance, you have to get over your own ego first.
Yeah.
Because you say, well, if I'm a real healer, I should be able to go, and I'm not sick anymore. But it's just not that simple.
You're right.
It can be done, and you can ease the pain and grow spiritually while returning back to life. And we're both living proof of that. Because were you
Yeah.
not told you weren't going to live either not long ago?
Multiple times.
You
I am a
want to share
yeah.
that?
I would say that I'm a cat. I have 9 lives, but I'm probably on number 8.
Me too. I think I'm on my 13th one. I done broke the bank, girl.
Yeah. And each time I would question, like, what the hell? Like, how am I still alive? And I'm like, holy crap, I'm alive. Thank you. I just have more gratitude for being alive now because now I know. I had an Akashic reading done last year, or
Oh,
almost 2 years ago, and I found out that I
oops.
used to be a shaman and a healer in other parts of the world, but I also have had my last 2 previous lives were Native American. And that's why I'm so connected with the Native American heritage. And I was healer. I was the Indian chief's daughter on the last one, and I was a healer. So it makes total sense now because that's all I want to do is help and heal people energetically because that's what I know how to do. Now, am I a doctor? Hell no, nor do I want to be. But if I can learn things holistically, which I am starting to learn, but I can also use that on an energetic level, that can be part of the new educational system. We need to get rid of the false education that's out there and implement the true teachings for everyone. And if you, like you said earlier, if you want to be in robotics, we're going to need that to create our communities. You're going to need electricity. You're going to need this and that. And we're going to need people who know how to fix stuff. But we're also going to, I think we should get back into sacred geometry. I mean, we need to get into astrology more, because that's where a lot of the teachings come from. I just, I'm very excited to see our youth um, implementing their ideas now. It's very clear that they are the the rainbow children coming
Yes.
in and giving their ideas and putting it out there, but we have to support them. We have to.
And I'm
And
ready.
I think the more of us who speak up and start talking about this stuff, the more support there's going to be. And then the newer communities are going to happen. And it's going to be freaking fabulous.
Did you hear that?
I did.
I didn't mean to jump. I was like,
Woo.
okay, veteran here, help. I was in the army forever ago, and loud noises happened to be one of my um you know how they have the thing called triggers? I just almost
Yeah.
laughed so hard because I was like, okay, y'all don't have to do that to me while I'm on video.
Well, you did very well keeping your cool.
I held it for the first 10
Oh,
shots and I was like, hold on, give me a moment here. I wanted to know, could you hear it on the video?
oh yes, I heard it.
Listen to this.
Woo.
They're celebrating. Can you hear
Wow.
this?
Yeah, that's pretty early to be celebrating.
It's right in my backyard. I mean,
Wow.
I
What
can
time is
hear
it?
it
8 something?
across
Yeah.
the street. We're up near the mountains. You don't know what's going to go on up
Oh,
here at night.
that,
Usually it's us lighting our fire. We just mind our own business. But
yeah.
there's a
Maybe
rain.
it was the sign.
The sign. I'll say they're beginning our celebration because we're having I call this a good old powwow between
Oh, yeah.
sisters.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the traditional stories about the rainbow warriors that were to come?
No.
And a lot of the native historical stories online, that is, they said there was going to come a time and it was going to be women, and they were bringing back the rainbow warriors for all the tribes of all the nations of all the people since creation. That represents the Rainbow Bridge Tribal Council of Light I was telling you about previously. Because the goal was to bring everyone together as humanity, regardless of your origins, which is huge. It doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter your education level, as long as you're willing not to harm others intentionally, we can create a world of peace and end war. We have no need for war.
You're right.
It was created to control the masses. So when the masses become aware of that, which I pray that in right now, sister, if you have any verbiage to add, that would be greatly appreciated. Because if we can put an end just momentarily, thank you guys, appreciate that, to the war that's constantly being planned ahead of time, right? You know
Mhm.
that part, to control masses. But the people who lack in those areas that are getting harmed through, we all love our soldiers who protect our nations, but there's also another side of that to
Yeah.
the people who are innocent victims living in their villages with their means that they have naturally to provide being ravaged and sent to other places in exchange for money,
Yeah.
right? So the trauma in between that process is what I was guided to focus on to heal. Because to heal PTSD, I'm still working on my girl. They're having fun with me today. But technically, PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, is anything that happened that traumatized you since birth or before that you can still remember. So if
Yeah.
we can heal that one little bit of depression, the light can start to beam in and clear out the rest of it.
Yep.
But when those blocks are up, nothing can get in. except a
You're right.
teeny tiny beam or a ray of light. If we can get that tiny ray of light to just shine around the whole universe on this night, is what I'm calling on. Before we met,
That's I do. Absolutely.
it started this morning. We
Mhm.
got our first message at 1:11, I think, and we've seen signs and lights. And you've got pictures of things that I wasn't even aware of on camera. Um, Anything you would like to add, I would be happy to hear.
Okay. I do a daily ritual when I start out my day. If you can call it a prayer, whatever, but I call from the four seasons. Um, I always start in the east and I say, peace, love, and light, light, love, and peace. I am light, I am love. I spread light, I spread love. And then I move to the south and then to the west and to the north. And then when I do one of my moments of meditation, I visualize being in the ethers. I am in the ethers, and I spread that energy out of my heart like an explosion to everywhere. And I say the peace, love, and light, light, love, and peace, and to end all wars, because war, it's all fake. And I think of it as an illusion. The war was created to distract us, so we need to focus on the light and the peace. And that's just a little something for, if anyone else resonates with that, they could try it.
I love that. Do you have any suggestions on how we, us as family, sisters of the light, peace and love codes, should address the other leaders? Because we're the tribal leaders of the Rainbow Bridge Tribal Council of Light, and we only seek for the good of all. But we are both very aware, and all of us are aware of the ones who work both sides of that system to their advantage because they don't want to lose control. And when we were first brought together today, I was hearing very loud and clearly it's time that we call upon all of our elders in spirit to release anything that no longer serves our lineage's highest good so that we can bring new earth into existence in a way that won't harm anyone because we've already forgiven everyone. And you just said something a minute ago. So when you go to the outer realms of your,
Yes.
is there a certain atmosphere that you're working on? Like, would it be the meridians or do you go
It's
all the way to source and back, or are you going to the center of the earth? Oh wow, the lights
I
are.
go I go out from the center of the earth.
So you go to center earth and you
Mhm.
project out.
Correct.
Okay, so
Then I
I
see
came.
myself, and then I actually see myself in like outer space. I'm out into the universe. And then in that one little area of the universe that I'm at, I just spread it. It just goes out everywhere like an explosion.
Kind of like the Big
Like,
Bang.
yeah, exactly.
I love it.
That's what I envision.
So I didn't get that same exact experience. Mine was more like when I got taken to before in spirit, when I was in the restoral mode and trying to heal and I passed and was in spirit way up high. I started seeing lights of every color you can imagine. And I was like, oh wow, these are like rainbow color lights. And I was formulating every color you can imagine according to where it needed to go, right? And then all of a sudden I just thought, I wonder, and then I ended up here. And I was like, what? Come on. So I had to keep going back there. And so I finally figured out that the Rainbow Bridge Tribal Council of Light was like the actual bridge between old and new earth. And I was trying to figure out how to cross people over, energetically speaking, without harming them,
Mm-hmm.
to give them time to let go of all their old miseducation, to put it nicely. Because if you don't know any better, you just don't know. But if
Yeah.
you're willing to learn, I mean, it's really a great life if you're not harboring all that anxiety all day, all night, just to wake up and breathe and go, would be so nice. But people like us have been working on this on grid lines and universal blessings and prayers to the point of we had to come together in person eventually to get it to work.
Right.
But the Rainbow Bridge, it's literally like a fiber optic network of every color you can imagine with peace, love, and light entwined. So imagine the peace, love, and light is the trilogy, and it just
Mm-hmm.
spins into this beautiful chord and the trees of life and all that. And then I pictured that part, and then it became a network, and then the network encompassed everything and everyone since source. And so I kind of like that spiral thing did. You know what? I don't know how to put it properly, but it's like that spiral. And
Yeah.
then the spiral became the intranet and basically encased everyone in peace, love, and light so that they'd be safe on their journeys before I woke up. And then I
Wow.
was trying to figure it out. I was like, how do I explain that again? Because I'm not a scientific minded type girl. I've always done art or hair, or I can do paintings all day, but trying to figure out telepathic messages from people like
Mm-hmm.
well, Nikolai Tesla and all those folks that come through every once in a while and say, hey, you guys are going to need an invention station for the kids. And we're like, okay, did that come with a notebook somewhere? Because I'm here. They'll give you a glimpse of a
Yeah.
impression, and then you're like, okay, I got the impression loud and clear. Did it come with a manual? And
Can
then
you
you'll meet
download that
somebody.
for me?
Yeah, like 5 minutes later, you'll meet some guy that's like, yeah, I want to put wells in people's yards so that they don't have to have tainted water. And I
Mm-hmm.
have him on an interview, by the way. He's a really cool guy. Um, I'll show you that one later. But
Okay.
I get synchronistically drawn to people because I know that they have a purpose, and I'm so excited when I meet. I forget what I don't know how to question people properly. Come on, I'm not a like journalist on TV. I'm like the one that no, tell me the real deal. Like, how do you get to that point where you just know that it makes you happy to see other people happy just by sharing love that you didn't receive, to heal that part of you that needs to see it in person to know it's real.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like, we've been beat up, we've gone through all of these things, yet we exude love no matter what.
Yeah.
And
Are
and
you
uh
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you familiar with Michael Tellinger?
yeah, I met him.
You have?
I mean,
So
we've
have I.
spoken and talked, but yeah,
Okay. So you're
the
familiar with the Ubuntu community living?
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I heard about the Ubuntu tribe about I forget how many months after my awakening started, when they were asking me to build cities of light. So I was
Mhm.
like, keep in mind, I was getting messages in spirit through my healing process. And I was new to it. So I was trying to understand all these messages coming in all of a sudden, loud and clear in all these different accents and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this must be major. And they were saying that New Earth was coming in and they're preparing everyone. And we had to reach at least 51% um, of mass awakening in order to bring it through without harming anybody accidentally and all this type stuff, because we didn't want to harm Earth, and everyone was going to stand together. And I was like, what? Are who? Like, hairdresser my whole life here. I was like, what? And I'm supposed to figure out what? Like, I just didn't get it. And then it hit me, and I was like, okay. So we would be told what was about to happen, and then I would see somebody like Michael Tellinger bringing out the Ubuntu tribe, or Jen, with the event is happening,
Mhm.
Jen, I believe it's
McCarthy?
yeah, yeah. So then we met Jen, and I've met a lot of people who are so great and cool, and they do all this work. And I
Yeah.
figured one day we'd all get together for a big kumbaya and start building villages. Because what else is there at this
Yeah.
point? We put our whole heart, mind, body, and soul into this ascension process so that other people can have an easier road.
Yeah. I've
And
met him personally. He's amazing.
yeah, I only spoke with him on the phone. So
Uh,
do tell. I can't wait to hear this.
yeah. He is awesome, and he is like very humble, very authentic, and such a kindred, kind, true soul that is really just wanting to help change things for the new world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be awesome if you could interview him sometime.
Well, I probably could if I asked him to. When we spoke, we were talking about building sustainable cities all over the world because that's what I wanted to talk to him about. But at the time,
Yeah.
he was, I believe, recording something for the History Channel or something. So we were going to meet up
Yeah.
again at a later time. But no, I don't mind. I'll call him. Anyone we need to call to get these places going for educational healing centers. That's all we need. We have people have houses, we have utilities. It's just a
Yep.
way of leaving less of a carbon footprint and letting our children be the leaders they're meant to be because
That's
they know
right.
what to do. We're
Yeah.
just lucky they picked us as their parents. That's how I feel. Like I'm so lucky I have these beautiful children because they are so brilliant to me.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have that because we had to change the times in between then and now for them to receive this level of education is all.
Yep.
And to me, the more we can help them get in touch with their spiritual side, it eliminates all that darn depression that comes through natural hormones during teenage years.
Yeah.
And it seems like we have a lot of issues with teenage depression and suicide. And
And medicating them that does not need to happen.
right, like I hear that, well, I've heard about it. They say the little kids get all this medicine. And I'm like, for what? They're kids.
I
Like
know.
you have bad days, good days. Everybody doesn't have ADD, or maybe we do by now. I don't know.
They don't what medical the medical field doesn't realize is, or they do, I should say.
Yeah.
They know that what these kids, the new kids coming in right now, what their abilities and their gifts are, and they're trying to stop them from using them by medicating them.
Mm. Well, that sounds like some pretty high up governmental law type conversation. Who's ever in charge of that? I don't know their name, but I'm sure
Yeah,
they'll be listening. So we will pray that one into existence.
absolutely.
Because if we can meet with the leaders who actually care about the people, we're the humanitarians. I it's hard for me to say anything when it comes to politics or
Yeah,
or certain religions because God is in my heart. My spirit guides me each day I rise, and that I can understand. I
yeah,
don't comprehend you were guilty for being born and everything you do is wrong, which is what I previously was told by many people. And I'd be like, but I thought they said be kind to others. So why is me giving whatever we feel called to a stranger wrong when we're supposed to love our brothers and our sisters, period? If you see
right,
somebody that's hungry and you have this big, ginormous piece of food that you only really need about a quarter of, really, to fill you up, why
right.
not
Give it.
give it to the person who obviously needs it more than you do, or they wouldn't be digging in a trash can?
That's right.
Like to me, that's natural. But to a lot of people, they don't understand that. And I don't that's where I get confused because I'll be like,
I,
why do you not understand that? If you were in that situation, you would be praying, whether you believe in prayer or not, for someone to throw you a bite to eat,
Mhm.
because it's a tragic thing to have to look at a trash can for food
Yeah, there's plenty enough food on this planet
to
that
feed
nobody's
everybody.
starving. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen where there's a lot of groups that get the restaurants to like donate food instead of throwing it
Yeah,
away. And I mean, we can make entire lists if you want to of what our agenda is. I don't mind contacting people and interviewing them. Um, I would like to meet with a lot of the elders of the indigenous nations of tribes, because to me they hold the keys to the sacred lands.
mhm,
Although it might not appear like that at this moment in time, they do.
yeah,
They own the rights. If there's even such a thing as owning rights, because Earth was free
right.
and you were blessed by Earth providing for you. Period. As long
They're
as you can.
protectors.
Exactly. So that's the whole point. We've forgotten that, and
Yeah,
everyone is so focused in this little tiny tunnel on how much money is in your pocket, or how many cool devices we have, or this or that, but they forget we're human. We need love. We need attention. We need inspiration to just create. If you're a
yep,
creative type person, which I've always only known myself as such, as a co-creator in my head of whatever's currently in front of me, it intrigues me because the process of creation is, you put your love into it. You really appreciate the fact that you have this, whatever it is, and when you see it's done, you're like, wow, look at that. But if you don't like what you do, you're just like, "Pfft, you will feel it."
yeah,
A sister said if you put a tomato here and a tomato here in two separate jars, and you tell this one, I hate you, you're ugly, it's gonna shrivel up. If you tell this one, I love you, it's gonna blossom into a big tree.
absolutely. You can do that with anything,
But we're the
any type
same.
of food. Yeah, or a
People are
plant,
the same.
flower, or a person. Let's
Yeah,
choose love. I know.
yeah.
I think us coming together and while in meditation, this is something that we could do, just an idea, to ask for these leaders, speak to their higher selves, to their spirit, and communicate with them on a higher level so that their spirit can communicate with their 3D vessel then.
I agree. We're gonna end this particular video on that note, and
Okay.
we're gonna be right back in a few seconds. Blessed
Okay.
be to all listening. We love everybody. We're doing our best to clean up this mess. If you're interested in joining, we're right here. Callette Avery is usually available, I believe, on Facebook, correct?
Yeah.
And
Facebook.
Rainbow Bridge Tribal Council of Light is the Facebook messenger app I use to receive messages on behalf of our ministries for peace. And we'll see you in a minute. Have a great New Year's Eve.